welcome back. We are into game number 2, actually, of this other semifinal. And in the bottom right, as the red Protoss up 1, he is ShoWTimE. On the top left is the blue Terran. He is KeeN. So yeah, they did the first game, and ShoWTimE ended up taking it. Not sure what happened, and as such, there also will not be bets. But yeah, second game was held up, and now we're into it. It was KeeN's map choice, and I'm not too surprised to see that ShoWTimE is up 1-0, I guess, as ShoWTimE is kind of a boss no matter what. ShoWTimE, even if we don't cast him on a regular basis, which we don't, even though he made it to the Corsair Cup finals, it was off the back of, I think, 1, maybe 2 of them. Not all 3, that's pretty much for sure. Yeah. But even if we cast him like only once every 2 or 3 months, I would still come in talking about exactly how he was 2-3 months ago. He is one of the most consistent guys, I think. And I'm not sure is too much of an argument can be made otherwise. Sure, he'll have ups and downs, you know, especially versus Terran, where, you know, everyone does. And if he was Zerg, maybe he'd have up and downs versus Zerg, right? But he is not that guy that I'm worried about his mental state or his lack of practice and lack of motivation. He just is really quite professional, so that's why I think he'd be great. I think in any day he would beat KeeN, and since any day is his best day, it seems, for ShoWTimE, I wouldn't be surprised if the season was a 3-0. I'm gonna give KeeN 1 game, however, just because KeeN is very good with sometimes inconsistently being very, very good. I guess that's the way I'll put it. And I think he could take a game off of anyone, especially if he plays them often enough. But it's gonna be difficult against ShoWTimE for sure. Especially if ShoWTimE is playing towards the Stargate, which in this game it seems like he is. I mean, last series rather, that he played a PvT, he did not. He actually played at least one of the games being Colossus, right? The Cactus Valley game on versus Thermal, but I think he can play both styles, so. The winner of this will be facing Snoots. You just missed the last series ending, so either TVZ or PVZ. Pretty balanced, right, guys? Balanced top 4. The starport on the way, it's going to be a Widowmine drop for KeeN. This is something that Stargates do absolutely well against, rather, not terribly against. The trick really is that you have to be good positioning. I mean, that's really a trick to Protoss in general, don't get me wrong. Like, if your Phoenixes are over here and your drops over there, then of course it doesn't look very good at all, right? But that's the real mark of really good Protoss, is that they are actually, like, I'm guessing if they don't already off-race, could off-race pretty well as Terran, because they learned what is the most common attacks. And to be honest, it's someone on Terran as well, because we've become very obvious. But that aside, I think that's why Neo had such trouble against Gumiho, really. Not just in the finals that happened recently, but in the round of 8 placement that happened like a week before that. Was that Gumiho did everything that was kind of standard for Terran, aside from a couple of Cyclone all-ins and all that. But he would, like, just drop with the weirdest places. He would have the weirdest amount of Widowmines, you know? Like, it was just a weird amount that a guy like Neep, who's also a very consistent Protoss most of the time, nowadays, just could not do well against. So, KeeN already starting off things well with that kind of weirdness by having a Widowmine not in the mineral line. This is a very dangerous thing to do, because if he just over to the left a little bit more, the only thing that happens is the Viking shoots him away. And while that's so good for KeeN, it's not the death of an Oracle. Now, Death of an Oracle doesn't put ShoWTimE in a terrible position, but it does make a lot more emphasis on the Phoenixes getting good scouting, being good with the Phoenixes, which I believe he will be. And a little worrisome that maybe the Terran could do something really weird. Again, like push forward with 8 Marines instead of waiting for Stim and Medivacs. That would be odd enough that it would be even a little bit dangerous without a, you know, if it was an overcharge, for instance. If it was over at the 3rd base without a pylon. So. But that's not the case. He just transferred over his barracks to start combat shields and stim. And while Medivacs will be coming out shortly, they still won't have a lot of, you know, potential without stim. Phoenix does get hit by the Widow Mine. Probably thought it would have moved already, but joke's on him, it did not. One day, it will move over to the left, because it'll probably be more worried about War Prisms than it will be about Phoenixes, but that day has not yet come. And the Phoenix's count is still growing. Adept, Resident Enclaves, rather, and +1 on the way. A lot more gateways. Everything went pretty swimmingly as far as macro goes for both of them. Oracle didn't do anything. KeeN didn't even bother with Mine dropping, which I think is the smarter move. It's funny, because a lot of what I feel Terrans have learned against this style... Oh, they did lose a Reaper. That's what happened, yeah. Yeah, what Terrans have really learned against playing against the style is, like, what made it go from, wow, this is so overpowered to, okay, this is so very strong, is not to commit when you don't have to. You know, once upon a time, Terrans were like, I built one factory and one starport, I have to Widow Mine drop. And you have Terrans like KeeN who think, like, well, maybe not, because it's gonna get picked off, so. I believe one Phoenix just died there. This other one is very close, but picking up does save it. That's a good chunk of Marines. I have no respect for Terran players, that's true. As one of them, we're just totally disrespectful. Another Phoenix almost goes down. Did not catch the third base though, which is a really nice thing for KeeN. That's just so annoying to deal with. Scans ahead, sees that there's a lot of adepts, is just gonna, you should just assume that they have Resident Enclaves and +1 at this stage of, you know, being professional gamers. And there's 2 pylons too to overcharge. There's no, like, well, maybe if I snipe it fast enough, it's gonna work out. Like, that just isn't something you want to bank on. So again, going back to Terran learning that you don't have to commit. Committing is probably the worst thing you could do, in fact. The best thing you could do, I would say, especially against like a ShoWTimE who has showed a lot of preference to transitioning kind of early, I would say, away from Phoenix Adept, is to poke and prod and make them worried, but not actually commit. So that ShoWTimE might find himself thinking, okay, where's the attack? Where's the attack? I'm not going to transfer over into Robo, because what if he attacks? Where's the attack? Oh, I guess he's not attacking. And then he's going to try and push into, what, KeeN with like 10 Liberators? Like that? Yeah, that wouldn't work out. That's something that KeeN would try and do. As KeeN has, I would say, been playing a lot more lately to just defensive Liberators against Protoss. But once ShoWTimE realizes he's not being attacked, he could try and force the issue and actually just run in and all in with the Depths, and that might work, to be honest. Depths are good. But he could also transfer over into anything else, which in this case is Blink. There's the Robo, there's Robotics Bay, there's the, you know, the armor's already on the way as well. And yeah, it's not as early as some other games from ShoWTimE, but it's the same idea. Like, he doesn't want to get stuck all in with Adepts, because it just doesn't work out as well anymore. Widow Mines do not get their shot off, although that one was very close. And the medevac does survive, which is a lot more important. In fact, the Phoenixes are looking for this other medevac they knew was over here. Fortunately, the Marines already dropped. A little bit scary, because these Phoenixes are low. One goes down, another one does go down, that last Marine shot, but the medevac is going to try and get out safely, and this is not bad. In fact, this is, I mean, already by getting 1 or 2 Phoenixes, okay, but the fact that both medevacs got out alive is shocking and good. We have Widow Mine just placed randomly around the map, another thing that KeeN and Alive and Gumiho seem to be just really on the forefront of doing consistently. If you get those Phoenixes weakened, it's not just that, you know, they are easier to pick off one at a time when they harass. It's also that if they fully engaged Adepts alongside the Phoenixes, everything is a little bit weak. That is truly the difference of staying alive versus just getting overwhelmed. Look on the calendar doesn't show today's events. I don't know if you talk about the Twitch calendar, but we found out about the Twitch calendar as soon as it was announced, right? And we're playing around with it, but I don't think we would be super consistent about using it. If you're talking about anything else, the Team Look calendar was updated last night, and our calendar has had this on it for some time, so it's actually pretty consistent. Adepts is going to be used to harass. Of course, you don't want to give all of them away, especially not at once, otherwise you just get counterattacked and killed. But eventually you're going to transfer over into maybe charge lots, a lot more Blink Stalkers, and Adepts are always going to be very good at killing the SCVs, ain't they? So 8 SCVs died. Attack is over here. It's a little tricky just with a Ridge, but really with the Colossus already out, this is not a place where KeeN is going to take his engagement. He's going to run back home. He is still building up his bio count. I thought he'd be building his Liberator count up a little bit more. Stuck at 6 right now. But maybe not. If you're going to go for 6 Liberators, I think you should go for Liberators, you know what I mean? Like, you should go for double starport. There we go. Advanced ballistics, double upgrades. For those of you who are not super in the loop, I suppose, as to be honest, a lot of Koreans still aren't super in the loop, is that +2 ship weapons makes stalkers two-shotable again. So it's a good upgrade to have. And speaking of, it looks like ShoWTimE might just be hitting here with a really nice timing 2-2 before KeeN's 2-2. Especially if he's being chrono boosted. Yeah, he definitely will have it faster. Not by too much faster, mind you, and he probably won't use it, but it's actually very dangerous. This is a very scary army. There's nothing to actually take care of the Colossus other than hoping Liberators get a couple of shots on it. This is before Advanced Ballistics. This is before 2-2. It's before the Planetary is done. It's a very good time to hit for ShoWTimE, but he's being very cautious about these Liberators. For Colossus now, with the Adepts transferring through, realizing, oof, it's actually a big mistake, I would say. If there are supply depots here, even if they aren't raised at first, ShoWTimE might never try and send the Adepts in. But because there was obviously not a wall, 16 SCVs go down before being cleaned up, and that's good damage. Planetary does finish, Liberators do hold on, and now all the upgrades are finishing for everyone, including the Advanced Ballistics. So, KeeN has held, but behind this, ShoWTimE is taking a 5th base. Well, he's saturated his 4th, I should say, and he's now taking a 5th base. And he's continuing his upgrades very fluidly. This is immediately after 2-2, he starts 3-3. So even if he didn't do very much damage here, he is still containing KeeN very well, and is still not quite fearful yet of being overrun by Liberators. He gets the Planetary even, which I didn't think he was going to get. That's good. And is still looking for other things to get. Upgrades is a good thing too. But now that Advanced Ballistics is done, and he's really capped himself out on this army type, especially attacking into KeeN, yeah, gotta go to that Fleet Beacon. If you're in a really great position as a Protoss player, and the Terran player looks like he's gonna die, but never quite does, and suddenly shows up with 12, 15 Liberators with range and upgrades, and you die, that's not Terran being overpowered, it's Liberators being really good. But it's also just, like, it's definitely your mistake. Like, you cannot deal with so many Liberators only with Blink Stalkers unless you get into very lucky positioning. So, Stargate's the way to go, Tempests are the way to go, or Carriers, I suppose, but thinking about Tempests, and just making sure not to get sieged up without taking a few shots on Liberators first. But with KeeN being so defensive and still having about 30 army supply before he's maxed out, he might not be thinking about moving out anyways. In which case, Tempest will absolutely be able to get shots off on the defensive Liberators. ShoWTimE actually takes the engagement, though he does have Storm. His upgrades aren't quite done, but seeing an opportunity because the Liberators weren't quite sieged up initially, I don't know. He does end up taking out a lot of the buy on the ground, so it does end up being a pretty good trade. I'd say maybe a better trade for KeeN, but still a trade. It was not devastating amounts of damage on ShoWTimE's army. And he also is still transferring over into Tempest. But it was a little bit concerning. He was committing a little too hard. 3-3 is about to finish up. KeeN, of course, was delayed to his 3, a lot because of his gas, but also a little bit because of his minerals. He has never started +2 ship weapons, by the way, which I mentioned, like, a lot of these pro gamers have not realized the true power behind it yet. And I would think it is actually so important to Liberators, if you're going to be going a Liberator style, that I'm not even going to excuse the fact that he's been low on gas. You know, I think one less Liberator for one more upgrade is actually totally worth it. Or however much you would need. It's 225 gas, isn't it? Oh, wait, how much is it? I don't get armory upgrades enough to tell you guys. Base is 100, I know that much. I don't know about level 2 and level 3. 8 probes went down somewhere. I'm gonna assume one of mine dropped, or just a couple Marines, but you know, still at 63 probes, doesn't really matter. Liberators are sieging up, forcing ShoWTimE away, but the Tempests are already here. Storms are certainly a concern as well for this very low Marauder army, but it's also a concern for his very limited number of medevacs. If 2 get feedback to death, that's already pretty crucial to his medevac count. Tempests are taking advantage of their bridges still, and honestly the lack of Marine count, like either one, and taking out these Liberators, sure, slowly, as there's only 3 Tempests right now, but soon enough there will be 5 and then 7. ShoWTimE has the upgrade lead even as KeeN's +3 weapons finishes. Vikings are now on the way as he realizes that Tempests are out. But it's just, he's getting he's getting beat to the punch, you know? Like, ShoWTimE's already gone to the late game a little bit faster, a little bit better, with a better economy. And KeeN has to hope for just a good engagement opportunity, which this is maybe not one of them. He does get the High Templars. They're going way too far forward. So he stims underneath. The Tempests are going down, even to only like 15 Marines here. But as long as they get the Tempest first, the ground army of ShoWTimE should be able to hold. Now, ShoWTimE's also running out of gas. He's got to be careful that he doesn't try and warp in at, 18 Adepts and suddenly can't. Or he make 2 Colossus. But he could also start warping in charge lots. Oh no, he never got charged. Just kidding. Yeah, it would be Adepts then. Backup storms are available, so while they do have to turn on Archons now, they still got a couple of storms, leaving that bio just so low in health. Colossus aren't even touched. And ShoWTimE wins game number 2. Thank you to Sharpener89 for the Twitch Prime sub. Did I miss anything else? Bacon here donated 1 bit, stabs Montian with a toothpick. Montian donated 300 bits, cheer 100, cheer 100, to be the boss, I guess. Which puts him very close to not being the boss. Actually, it's really funny watching the boss battles, because you have to do it in reverse to see the storyline, I guess. So what happened? We had Breathe Cyanide sub after Stoffy. I shouted that one out. And the rares donated bits. Dicio, whatever it is. Megadog, Dicio again. Hello Zergling, reached up for 30 months. I think I just shouted that one out too. And more from Megadog. Shout out Alkanauts. Small Jam sub for 2 months. The Gauntlet actually hosted. Thank you very much. And then it was Montian and Bacon Hero. Okay, yeah. So Montian still has a lot of health left. It's back to KeeN's map choice. I see he's down 2-0. Yeah, level 2 is 175. Yeah. You're right. I feel like if I had even 5 more seconds to think about it, I would have gotten it. But just continually speaking, I was confused. KeeN chooses Belshir. And they're both ready. Alright, Belshir is game number 3, potentially the last game, as KeeN is down 2-0. Look how pretty it is. Alright, in the bottom right, as the blue Terran, he is KeeN. And it's up left, as the red Protoss, he is ShoWTimE. For anyone just tuning in, I suppose, maybe from the host, maybe just because you found the time between your boss looking behind your back. Rifkin was feeling sick, so he ducked out a little bit early, and now I am observing and solo casting. It is the second semifinals of the Corsair Season 3 finals, and the winner of this will go on to face Snoot in the grand finals. Best of 5. It's a lot of finals. That's the way it goes. We will be casting the VSL tomorrow and Friday, by the way, before the VSL cast is taken over by Zeph and Maynard. We had to rearrange our schedule a little bit too. Initially we had grand plans to reorganize and maybe try and set our sleep schedule a little bit better, but it failed entirely. So the Corsair Cup, as far as it is now, will probably still be on Monday, as it has been for many years. I know it's not today and before, blah, 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 but this is what the odd man out. I guess since it's coming around to the convention season, it's worth noting that while this last weekend seems like one of a kind, like we went to Corsair headquarters and cast the tank finals, and we took, you know, 1 or 2 days off to travel and all that. Yeah, it doesn't happen too often, but actually DreamHack Austin is coming up already very soon. That is at the end of April, so actually like basically a month away, like perfectly. And we will once again be taking a little bit off to travel. But the good news is similar to the Ting Finals, we aren't just going to be there for 4 or 5 days doing nothing online. In fact, we'll be streaming basically the community cast like we usually do, but on location. So if you guys are going, definitely say hi between games. Yeah, if it is a convention or tournament, whatever you want to call it, then occasionally we will be missing the Monday casts. So. Oh, that Reaper died. That Reaper also had dreams and ambitions to scout, and one pylon was like, nope. Nope, nope, nope. Did not manage to scout the Robo, which is kind of important. You know, there are really 2 things that a Protoss can do composition-wise, right? Like, as far as cheeses and all that goes, there's a lot of things they can do, but as far as composition goes, it usually is either Colossus or Stargate play, with some very unique individuals like Hero or M. Cannon going for Blink Socket Disruptor. I guess I said Robo play, I should have said Colossus play, but you get what I meant. So that's something that you usually want to see, and you can usually tell very early on, too. Like, if they don't start off with a Stargate, they're usually not going to go into Adept Phoenix. This isn't a pylon cheese, it is just an odd amount of units early on. The Militia Corps can take the shot, but there's still Marines alive, so she wasn't supposed to. That was not on purpose. And that is not worth for ShoWTimE. That is 100 gas just gone. The good news is you don't necessarily need overcharges to deal with a Widow Mine drop, but it certainly helps make it a lot easier. So it's something that ShoWTimE does. If he doesn't have overcharges, he does need units, so he's got to just pull back and recollect himself. With such an early robotics bay, if this timed up with a Warp Prism, I would be saying maybe Disruptor drops. But as it's not, I'm going to just say it's Colossus. We'll see. KeeN is going to want to produce tanks. Unfortunately, it's a little bit supply block because Belshare is a very good tank map. And KeeN is also no stranger to tank pushes. I would say not many Terrans are anymore. They're just too good not to know. Sick of talking to ZG. Yeah, that's probably right. That's why Rifkin left. Corbman J, you joke, but it does feel like today's Monday just because it's like the start, quote unquote, of the work week, quote unquote, for me. Quote unquote. But no. Let's say. What am I to get one shot off? You could have just hoped it went to the gas geyser. Whatever. Gets one probe, gets out of there. Medevac lives. Medevac will live, too, because it's not Phoenix's, it is Colossus. And at this point in time, KeeN has probably gone that whole, like, oh my god, where's the Oracle? Where's the Oracle? There's no Oracle? Okay, it's Colossus, so he should know by now, for sure. Third base is on the way, and this really isn't that badly timed. Generally, if you go for Colossus, you get a later third than you do a Stargate, but I feel like that's not even true anymore. This is a later one, don't get me wrong, but it's... I feel like once upon a time, when people are still experimenting with Colossus and not quite mastered it quite yet, like there was like 6-minute, 7-minute third bases coming down, a lot more like Heart of the Swarm. And then Protoss got good again, and they were like, no, we can get it really early. Feels bad. But it is something that KeeN's gonna try and stop. So speaking of, I guess, getting it early, KeeN is moving in early with his push. But without Stim, without combat shields, without medevacs, without that tank even sieged, one Colossus kills the Marines, and anything else kills the tank. So this looks very lame. This is not usually how you do the push either, I will say. This, I think, was just like, oh, I saw he took a third base a little bit quick, let me try and stop him. It would have worked if he had 6 more Marines and 2 tanks, or one of them siege, or some like variety of that, right? Like, it actually would have been a little difficult for ShoWTimE to hold. You know, he only has 3 gateways to warp in, he's got to wait for Colossus to be built. Like, it could have been something, but it wasn't. And instead, it just was a loss of units, so that the follow-up push doesn't look as great. which is good news for ShoWTimE. Twilight Council on the way. Probably gonna be good. Blink, right? Blink Colossus is usually where you go. I guess you could try and go Blink, or not Blink, but Resident Glaives. Yeah. If you... I mean, let's be honest, Terrans aren't getting very quick Vikings. And even if they did get very quick Vikings, it's 2 or 4 at a time. Or with the push, and your Colossus still gets that damage done. So while Blink Colossus is still the old favorite to deal with Vikings, to deal with drops, I think ShoWTimE could get away with going for Resident Glaives. It's going to mean his ground armor is a little bit better. The Adept Shade Through to kill the tanks, or to get them to kill each other, rather, is going to be better. It means that if KeeN had decided to give up on tanks, go for a third base, go for drops, ShoWTimE would actually have a tough time defending against everything. But that's the thing. His Observer has been on the army, it's been on the bases, it knows exactly what KeeN is doing, and that's not dropping, it's going for a very tough tank push. KeeN only just now kills that Observer, but really seeing just 1 or 2 tanks already tells the Protoss usually enough. And ShoWTimE is absolutely meeting this. All this is definitely on purpose. I mean, he even warped in Stalkers as if he was going to go for Blink, but it's not. It's Resident Glaives. Scan ahead. I wouldn't be surprised if KeeN's thinking that there are Blink. There's going to be a Blink sometime, but apparently enough, there won't be. It does also mean his Liberators might get to live a little bit longer, but thankfully for that recent nerf to them, the Stalkers live long enough to take out at least 2. Not they are 3-shot and not 2-shot. And this should still be a good enough army for ShoWTimE. It's a delicate procedure, don't get me wrong. KeeN's army is not bad just because ShoWTimE knew what was happening, what was coming. But this is exactly how you want to deal with it. He's got 4 Colossus, he's got Adepts that have Resident Glaives, even if they don't transfer through, they're still getting their attacks in. The Stalkers, however, are not killing the Liberators, and the Liberators, in fact, all of them live. This one didn't even die. 12 health here. And the bio did not go down as quickly as I think ShoWTimE was hoping for Colossus, but it was a very large concave for KeeN. 1-1 was also not done, and ShoWTimE saw an opportunity. Maybe should have just continued buying time. Instead, he might have messed up here. There's a lot of Marauders. They're going to actually take a couple of shots from Colossus. The Immortal coming out will help for that, and I actually really like that Immortal for that purpose, but instead it just gets taken out immediately. And without Stalkers, without Blink, he actually cannot take on the Liberators. It's on the way now, and he'll have 1-1 for the next fight, but that was not the way that ShoWTimE wanted that to go. 3 Colossus on the right side will take out the tank, but it's on the range of the Liberators, so he's got to be a little more careful. Left side, Adept, Stalker taken out, Colossus taken out. He needed that Immortal to actually get rid of these 7 Marauders. ShoWTimE takes a loss here. KeeN with his 2-base tank push makes it work. Kind of surprised by that. I really thought ShoWTimE had everything in mind, and then just underestimated Liberators and tanks, I suppose. Well, we're going to go into Newkirk, but only after this quick 2-minute break. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon. Welcome back to the 4th game. Still could be the final one as ShoWTimE is up 2-1. And speaking of which, in the bottom left, Newkirk, his map choice. It is the Red Protoss ShoWTimE. In the bottom right is the Blue Terran. He is KeeN. He's pretty keen on those tank pushes. Zombie of your bed looks like Hurricane Katrina. Well, that doesn't make any sense. You can't look like a hurricane. You can look like a hurricane went through it. You can't look like a hurricane. I'm just saying. That aside. He did have a very, very, very small bit war. I'm not going to shout all of you out because you all know who you are. But thank you for the bits. The smallest bit war ever. Yeah, tank pushes. It's a very important to note that it worked. And that KeeN is the type to continue doing tank pushes. He's not like a one-trick pony who only knows how to do it on Belshir or decided to experiment with tanks so he will never do it again. And it's Newkirk. So it's a little bit shocking, in fact, that ShoWTimE picks this map. As KeeN, I would say, is almost like guaranteed to try tank push. when you take your third bases, if you take your third bases, it gets to be actually a pretty small map. And if the Protoss takes the base here, like a lot of Protoss still do, then you have a choke automatically implemented because of the Nexus. So that's what I would expect anyways. And maybe ShoWTimE is kind of just thinking like, well, I had preparations to counter last game. I'll just have even better preparations this game. But I also, to note, I wouldn't be so surprised if ShoWTimE went for a different style, went back in a Adept Phoenix either. So, only time will tell. We have a probe just hiding here. He might try and throw down a pylon later on, as he is getting that militia report in Adept right now. The Reaper's on the way over. Could maybe see the timing. We can't help out much more beyond that. Probe is coming in now. Don't see a pylon set up for it, though. Could just taser the SCV. Reaper might just die here. But there you go. Luckily, the Shade doesn't need to wind up like the actual Adept does. Shade too good, am I right? Whoa! Okay, so I don't know if you have to cancel the Stargate, or Starport rather, to defend this, but it does mean the Cyclone comes out sooner, so this is like... Ideally, you'd see this coming before you even build the Starport, so you can get that Cyclone, then the Starport later, but it just looks very awkward. Like, is that, what, like 10 seconds? I actually don't know about the gas count. I'm not in the habit of canceling my Starports. Actually gonna be worth? If he didn't save the reactor, I would say no, but he does manage to save the reactor, take down the pylon, and heal the Adept too, so I guess it was? When you cancel, then you do lose minerals and gas, and of course the time on the medevac, but... Alright, alright. Honestly, at this point in time, because he didn't get a Widow Mine, he got a Cyclone, the timing on the medevac isn't even that important. It's gonna still pop out with at least one Widow Mine. Ideally, it would have been 2, though. Oracle's on the way. It is a Stargate follow-up, and as such, I do believe it's going to be Resident Englave Adept, which, you don't even bother with Stalkers, right? Like, he built, what, 7, 8 Stalkers last game? Almost as if he did plan on going into Blink, which he might have, and then he realized what was coming his way and decided to change his mind. But they ended up being very helpful. The one thing they could have done was kill the Liberators, but without that Blink, without that Focus Fire, they didn't. So they're just kind of useless, and there was not much beyond the Blink Stalkers on the ground that the Colossus needed that support. In this game, if KeeN was to go into a tank push again, just like automatically, that's what he does on Newkirk type thing. Phoenixes would lift the tanks, and the Adepts would absolutely slaughter the Marines. So, seeing that it is the Stargate opener, or follow-up rather, to the pylon, which it almost always is the follow-up to the pylon, KeeN might not go for tanks. It's a little bit tricky though, because most Terrans generally don't mind getting tanks, 1 or 2, because they're so good defensively. It's really hard to pass up. But a lot of the time on Newkirk, you can even think back to the GSL final, or semi-final rather, sorry, with Ryung and Stats. As a lot of people watch the GSL, so I've heard. You think back to that, and that's kind of what happens in most of the games on Newkirk, it feels. Like, the Resident Englave Phoenix seems like a more popular build, although both can occur. Phoenix or Colossus. And then the poor Terran who's thinking, well, he could attack me, and I need these tanks to defend, or I want to do a tank push, so I got tanks, gets trapped in a natural, and has to find some, like, amazing way to break out to the third, surrounded by Adepts and Phoenixes. And it just doesn't happen. Ryung tried to go for Ghost, if you guys didn't watch that game, and it almost worked, but not quite. So, I'm glad to see that KeeN doesn't go for tanks, basically. He goes for Widow Mines. Even has a Widow Mine in a very odd location, so it got the Oracle, actually, I think. Yeah. That wasn't a Phoenix, that was the Oracle. Very nicely done. That was on the low ground this time, too. Very cool. But ShoWTimE has his third base. He has 5 Gators on the way. He has Red Enclaves and +1, and he could start to threaten KeeN with a push. There's no tanks to make sure KeeN feels safe and cuddled in his natural base. But that doesn't mean there's more Widow Mines. That'll make ShoWTimE moving into his natural base more of a risk. So ShoWTimE probably shouldn't be doing that. But ShoWTimE could definitely try and take on the army if it moves forward. If the Widow Mines don't burrow in time, if they're all clumped up, any of those things. And the Phoenixes should be trying to pick those off, too. Yeah, 2 Widow Mines instantly amazing. Like, even if you trade out a Phoenix for this, that would be so good. Widow Mines are the thing that's going to keep his Marines safe, and if he has no Widow Mines and he commits to this, Adepts should just slaughter him. And if he gets slaughtered, this guy, you know, he's on 3 barracks, 2 bases, doesn't have much of a follow-up yet. Combat shield is done, but not stim or +1. Again, only 2 Widow Mines, not 4. This might be just a few too few adepts though, so he does cancel that shade. But again, with like what, like 8 gateways, 7 gateways. One's not finished. One needs to be a warp gate. There you go. With 8 warp gates, it's gonna be very quickly a lot of adepts, and that's the real trick to Phoenix adepts. At first, it doesn't look like much at all, and then it looks like a lot. This is a bit of a distraction, it looks like, for the attack to the main, however. So, in a way, this might be worth it, but I'm very, very scared. If this gets absolutely torn apart and everything will die, because the Phoenixes will chase, and this doesn't do a lot of damage, it still might not be worth for KeeN. Widow Mine is going to burrow. 1 Phoenix should take the shot for everyone else. Actually, a Probe took the shot. That ended up being a lot nicer. Widow Mine's on the backside. I guess there's another one I didn't see quite so, but it did get a shot, didn't kill anything, and again, the medevacs do die, so that was overall not a very good push. That means that these medevacs might live. Yeah, he's got to get out of there right now, but this was one of those questionable engagements I was talking about. There's Observer over the army, so only one of those Widow Mines gets a shot off. It's an okay shot, don't get me wrong, but still a lot of adepts. 4 Widow Mines need to get burrowed in good position right now before they get picked up. I guess they're kind of spread out. And the medevacs lived. The 3rd base is going to be able to finish, so no chances to get a stall out on that. But is this just too few Widow Mines, too few Marines? I think it is. That army supply, though, it was like 70 versus 30 to begin with, and very quickly went to 90 versus 15. GG. ShoWTimE takes the 3-1.